Cryptic Chronicles, a show dedicated to exploring all the unexplained mysteries of existence in this ineffable universe we call home, as well as anything weird, dark, or cryptic in the world. Today on the show, I got a special treat for you, listener. I'm joining Aquarian Radio, a radio show revolving all about the stranger things concerning the mysteries of the universe, the UFO phenomenon, and the general unexplained or metaphysical in general. Host Dr. Sasha and Janet Lesson and I go into the Anunnaki, as well as lore surrounding a federation of allied Lyran alien races, which is pretty fascinating. I've covered the Starseed lore before in the past, so it shouldn't be too unfamiliar, but they seem to know a lot more than I do. On Aquarian Radio, they discuss ancient aliens, Annunaki obviously, extraterrestrials in general, conspiracies, metaphysics, and of course spirituality. It was a real treat to join them, and let's just hop right into it, shall we? So buckle up, because it's time to get weird. I'm your host, Tim Hacker, and you're listening to Cryptic Chronicles.
Hello, hi everybody, and welcome to the Aquarian Radio Network. And I'm Janet Lesson. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lesson, and we are with Cryptic Chronicles Tim Hacker. And we are doing a simulcast of our two shows, and we're going to do a series of these. And we're discussing about all the anomalies in the universe and the history of ufology and extraterrestrials and cryptoids and paranormal and everything in between. How we hope to unravel some of the mysteries of creation and bring these to you in this and other future shows. So thank you very much, and aloha, and welcome, Tim.
I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Sasha.
Aloha.
Dr. Lesson, he's got about an hour before his teaching today. So, and he's an expert on the Anunnaki. Would you like to start with the Anunnaki today, and you want to ask him some questions?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, take it away, Tim.
So, I've been doing many hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of research on Nephilim lore, spanning across all the myth and legends of the ancient cultures throughout all history. And I haven't really gotten to the Anunnaki stuff in particular, but I am very familiar with it based off of Zecharia Sitchin's work, though I know that his work is not the most reliable.
Well, I would like to say his work is very reliable. We studied with him personally, both of us.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying that it's what I mean by that is the religious context that he puts into it kind of skews into somewhat of a bias. But other than that bias, it's pretty legit.
Well, for Zecharia, the Nephilim ultimately were the Ajiji, who had been on the base in Mars, operating the shuttlecraft, taking the gold to Earth and then off to Mars. And they came down, and they after Marduk married Sarpanit, and he was banished to Egypt with her. These stars took over the landing platform at Baalbek. They abducted or ran off with, however you want to think about it, 200 or so of the most Adamite women, earthling women that were there, and they settled in Canaan. And Marduk backed them. That's Satan in later times, but it's Marduk backed them and said, "Hey, they've got the guns on you. Just let them have their wives." And they started the lineages in Canaan, which ultimately became the Philistines and so forth. And so that in Sitchin's in the conflation that Sitchin postulates, that's who he thinks the Nephilim are.
Yes, he calls the Anunnaki all as a whole the Nephilim for the most part.
Well, he made a big distinction between the Anunnaki lords
Yeah.
and the ones the royalty and the regular guys,
So, what
the
do you think about
emissaries
the
often.
two factions between Enlil and Enki?
No, no, the royals in the Anunnaki, even back on their homeworld, they had royals and they had different castes and classes. The workers that came down and ran the transshipment station on Mars were not royals, or at least they weren't as
No,
high as
no, no,
royals.
they weren't at all. They were led by a Lord Anzu, who then led an early rebellion, invasion of the Martian, the Anunnaki on Mars, and this was beaten back by Ninurta, and Enlil took charge. So he gave Marduk, the job of taking Anzu's body back to Mars base and hanging it in the public square so everybody could see what would happen if you messed with Yahweh, with Enlil, because this was my commander, Mars, and now I'm sending Marduk with a body, and it's a warning to Marduk too, who is the legitimate claimant in his own mind, and by treaty too, actually, to the throne of Nibiru.
Yeah, and the constellation, the astrological signs pointed towards his rise to power as well.
Yeah, and everything, not just that, but Enlil had a vision. He said of Galzu, who's sort of the representative of the Federation, or perhaps the creator of all, saying, this is what's coming down. Marduk's going to take his turn, and well, Yahweh, Enlil did not want to hear that. He didn't tell anybody about it until it came true. And then after the nuking of Sodom and Gomorrah and Sinai, he got together with Enki and he said, you know what? Galzu gave me this vision, said this is what was going to come down. And yeah, it was, fated and destined by like you say, astrologically.
Yeah, absolutely. And why do you think that they decided to nuke the Near East to try and take out Marduk? Besides, even though all these signs were pointing towards his rise to power.
What was happening was there were several bones of contention. One of which, the deal on Canaan, where Seth had been exiled after he was defeated by Horus, that's where the settlements of Ham were, and the descendants of Ham were supposed to not be there, and then when they have this Enkiite chief there, they're closing in from all different directions. The cities of Canaan went over to Marduk. They were and away from Enlil, and that's what Abraham and Lot found out when they went to spy. And so, closing in from the Canaan side, there's Nabu. That's Marduk's son. And he's turned the cities. There's sin.
That's Tehuti, right?
Pardon?
That's Tehuti, right?
Yeah. On the other side, I'm not relating on Tehuti right now. Somehow that
don't have that name, but go ahead, continue the story.
I could go back into it.
Thoth is Nabu.
No, absolutely not. No, Thoth absolutely stays out of wars. That's not Thoth at all. No. Nabu is the son the prophet of Marduk. So his name is Nabu, and he lived in Besseris.
Nabu is the son of
Marduk.
That's Marduk's son, Nabu. Okay, great.
And so that's so that the aiming. So when they decide, and Nergal bombed the south end of the Salt Sea, which became the Dead Sea, and the waters rushed over Sodom and Gomorrah and Zoar, washed them away. So that was that was to get Nabu, but he escaped to his place, the island of Bosphorus, and he escaped. But what happened, and also Enlil sent the main thing was Marduk's armies were coming up from Egypt, and they were going to take the Sinai, and that's where the Utu had the controls for the getting on and off Earth, the main spaceport that Thoth had built out there in the Sinai. It was a beautiful place, totally different than what it is now. And Ninurta bombed that, totally obliterated the spaceport. Now, what happened is that the radioactive fallout from all this nuking combined these two great big nukings, and it started this radioactive storm that then blew over Iraq and Kuwait and killed off all the Earthlings in Sumer, basically, except for Marduk, who had his place in Babylon, and he had fallout shelters. His people were okay. Enki's people in the area of Eridu, Basra, they had fallout shelters. They were okay, but all the humans died. Bao, who's Ninurta's wife, stayed and died with them in her clinic. They were just dying in the streets. Most of the Anunnaki all just got in their planes and boats and got out of there. But the people died. And so then Enlil and Enki got together, and that's when Enlil said to Enki, that's how it is. I had this vision, and it's true. This is what happened, but I'm going to save my people. I got Abraham to get out of there, and I'm going to build something yet. Anyway, so the story goes on, but that's why they were in imminent danger of losing the spaceport. But Enlil had prepared an alternate spaceport at Tiwanaku with the great big runway down Nazca, and Ninurta and Thoth had just built this beautiful place up there, and so he was all set. That's where they actually had Anu come and visit. And Anu came and visited and said, "Hey, we're going to have to leave this place. Teach the humans as much as they can to make it on their own. But we got the goal we need. Let's get the hell out of here."
That's the end too. That's the climax. Can we rewind a little bit and kind of explain how that all went down?
Well, we could start when the Lyrans fled the Dracos.
That's like the farthest back.
Yeah, the Lyrans and the Draco beginning of time thing. But anyway, if you want to stay in the Anunnaki story, where do you want to rewind to?
So basically, I think that story really comes to be relevant concerning Earth when their atmosphere is starting to decline, obviously. And then the factions are, Anu takes over as king, and Apsu is kicked out, and he goes off, and nukes the whatever, I think it's Tiamat, the planet, and creates the asteroid belt. And then when he gets through that, he finds Earth and he finds gold. And then that's when the story really starts. At least for Earth.
Well, the asteroid belt was there from a prior or whatever, because we have an ongoing history of catastrophic events in our solar system. So did the asteroid, the original, so they just encountered it. They had to navigate through it. So
he was blasting it, I guess. He was just blasting to get through it.
Yeah, he blasted through. And then when Enki came through, he used water, because he's known as Aquarius, the water there. So go ahead. What did you want to say, Sasha? I took over the mic.
Well,
go ahead.
First of all, you did well relating the events that you got. That's really nice to hear that you got the story. So a lot of it does come back to the dynastic problems on Earth. Come back to this big dynastic thing that was going on, where the atmosphere was degrading. The king didn't do anything. A prince rebelled and killed him and said, "I'm king now." And the guy who was pretender, is supposed to be next, said, "No, you're not. I am." And they made a deal that the killer's daughter would marry
Alalu. Give names.
Alalu.
Okay.
Would marry his daughter to the pretender Anu's son Enki, and their kid, the first male they had, would be the successor to Alalu as king, and in the meantime, Anu would be cupbearer and honor for Alalu, and of course, after a while, Alalu was overthrown by Anu, and Alalu fled to Earth. And after a while, Enki and everybody winds up there, including Marduk. And Anu said, "I'm not going to ever let this kid rule. I don't give I signed the treaty under duress, and it's invalid. And I'm the king now. And Marduk, go take Anzu's body to Mars and let it impress you too, because I'm the king. Get it, kid? Okay, so that's the inner dynamic that has gone on for a long time. Even in recent times, when Marduk was called back, Anu said he was going to abdicate, and Marduk and he let everybody, including Marduk and his 200 followers, come back to Nibiru to help him choose his successor. And the first thing he said to Marduk, "Well, bow to the king." And Marduk said, "No, I'm the king. You bow to me." And Anu said, "Go back to Earth. We don't want you here." Anyway, this thing has gone on for a long time. Now, hopefully, it's over.
Right. The royals have been fighting for millions and millions of years. They have their battles with each other. But that goes back to Nibiru, because they were, there were more women than there were men, so that's how they started, making decisions. Which child is from the firstborn wife of the king, and they got to mate the highest royal on the other side, and yada yada yada.
Well, the deepest malaise that come to us from the Anunnaki is they had had a thermonuclear war that had almost killed everybody, and they came out with an attitude which we call dominator consciousness. The strongest man rules everybody, and you're always competing for status, and women are always inferior to men, and men make the rules and boss things around. And that's the attitudes. Everybody competes for everybody. The ones on top are on top. The ones on the bottom are on the bottom, and sort of caste systems and military dictatorship, and that's their model. And that's hard to shake right through every society, right down to the present.
Yeah, totally. So what about what exactly was the reason why they created humans or altered the humanoid that was already on Earth?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what we can go to deep motives, but one of them was the guy that was in charge of mining, that's Enki, knew that Nibiru was one day going to be not habitable. He couldn't stand this hyper competitiveness and lack of compassion of the people, and he hoped that somehow on this new planet, because these guys lived for a long time, he and the other Nibiruans could come to Earth and there would be a civilization there. And he was struck in his studies by Homo erectus, which was telepathically communicating, letting animals out of its traps, and it was very, very smart. This is the ancestor of modern Bigfoot, essentially. It could even phase shift to a degree. But in any case, he was fascinated by that. And in the meantime, in the mines, he was supposed to be mining the mines. The miners who were volunteers from Nibiru were having a very terrible time. They thought they were going to be heroes, and they were decades underneath the earth with all kinds of equipment and stuff like that. And they didn't get enough beer, and they didn't have any girls, and they were at the verge of mutiny. And so Enki seized on this as an opportunity. He said, withhold the gold until the boss, Yahweh Enlil, comes down here, and then it'll look like something terrible is going to happen. I'll save the day. I got something up my sleeve. And so they withheld the gold. The first Ninurta, the champion, came down, and then the boss, Yahweh Enlil, came down. The miners surrounded his cabin where he was, and Ninurta had his weapons. These guys with their burning their weapons, their shovels and their electric, whatever they are, drilling things. There were no weapons against Ninurta. But anyway, Enki steps right in and says, "Hey, wait, you don't have to do this. I got a solution for everybody. Send these guys home. They are working. They really need to go home." I found this creature. It's a humanoid from the old days that's here, and it's compatible. My son says his genome is compatible. We'll use some of his genes. We'll make helpers. And Ninurta said, "Helpers, nonsense. You know slavery's against the rule. That's against the rules. You can't do slavery. Make machines, smarty. Shut up. Listen. Let's call Dad." So they talk on the comm to Dad, and he says, "Hey, go ahead and do it. Make some people that are going to obey and send these guys home." But Enlil says, "But Dad, okay, well, just make it clones, okay? Clones, we agree to clones. Yeah, just clones. They won't be breedable. Okay, so that's the deal." And sure enough, he made some good ones, but they made him breedable.
He cheated.
And they really were great miners, and they didn't just dig with shovels and stuff. They used mining equipment. We know from when some of these people, we have depictions in stone of these people using some kind of tools.
Well, the women were just tired of being pregnant with these hybrid children all the time, so that's why they made them breedable.
Well, it wasn't just that. It was also a matter of the mechanics of doing work. The royals don't like to do work.
Right.
And Enki did indeed make machines. They go miles and miles and miles into the earth, but these guys were going after these veins of gold, and they were using advanced equipment all over the southeast of Africa.
Yeah, but there was more than one type of human.
Oh, there were many types of human. If we went back a little bit further, like we say, before the Anunnaki got to Earth, they only came 450,000 years ago. But way before that, there were humans all over the Earth. In different areas, they had different extraterrestrial sponsors. After the Treaty of Hatona, in the Andromeda group, they decided they would make a proto-human base that the geneticists of these different regions would then adapt and see what they could do to perfect. And 12 humanoid groups and a reptoid group that lived on Earth contributed. And the reptiles gave us our brain stem, fight or flight, take care of and different species contributed different parts. And so one of the brilliant creatures they made was Homo erectus, but there were humans all over, and ultimately the Federation counterattacked. They brought the Maldecans, who had sheltered underneath with the Martians.
Can you hold up for a sec? What's the Federation? I don't think my listeners have any clue about what that is.
Okay, well, if we go back a long time ago, there were these human beings, basically human beings that lived in the Lyran group, and people from another star system, Draco, reptilians, came and started a war with them, and they scattered and ran all over this part of this quadrant of the galaxy. And some of them went to the Pleiades, and some of them went to Sirius. The ancestors of the Nibiruans went to the Sirius group. Some of them went to the Pleiades, then back to the Sirius group. And they scattered all over, and the Dracos, the reptilians, pursued them. They blew up the planet Maldek, which was between Jupiter and Mars, and that became the Kuiper asteroids. They sucked off, as their death comet, as it were, past Mars. It sucked off most of Mars's surface waters and airs. As it went past Earth, it sucked off the water vapor in which Earth was covered, and it came to the position of the planet Venus. And the Dracos came out from under, and they built 7 domed cities. And from that, they put the moon in place, our Luna. And from that, they settled Lemuria, which was one of the 2 continents that they had raised as they went past it. The Lyrans, in the meantime, counterattacked. They took the Atlanteans from the Pleiades group and landed them on the other on Atlantis. And the Dracos had already been all over Earth by now, and they had brought their food with them, which was the dinosaurs. And the Atlanteans just killed the dinosaurs, and there was this huge war between the Dracos and the Atlanteans, and the Federation landed more Atlanteans in Southeast Asia. They cleared the Dracos off of Venus and out of Luna, and they basically settled the Earth, and that's the background.
Yes, but who's the Federation exactly? Is this the union of all of these scattered races?
It's the union. Well, it's not only humanoids, because there are reptilians in this, and there are reptilian groups which are allied with the Federation, which is dedicated to peace and unitary peace and no nukes, because that spoils their ability to travel. No nukes in space. They have a set of rules, and no messing with the time space. But everybody does. All the rules, just like any other government, get broken.
Everybody does. I've been to some Federation meetings as an experiencer contactee, and it's very diverse. There's so many species. Star Wars can't even track them all. But it's kind of like Star Wars and Star Trek, and there's hundreds and thousands and millions of different species. And then, of course, there are, the universe is full. Life is everywhere. But mainly the ones that, the meetings I go to, they are, sentient conscious beings. They tend to be the ones with, some kind of face, some kind of arms, some kind of legs, they tend to be. They group us. Well, what they told me is, there's species that I would be afraid of. So they try not to make you afraid. And there's something about a primal fight or flight that you get afraid. Whitney Stryver talked about it, and that's your knee-jerk reaction. So
you don't take spiders.
There are some. I was talking to, what was that, our guest? Oh, I had the guest on Friday. She went to a meeting. The head of the meeting was a large spider with a human head. It had a human head. So, of course, they manipulate genetics, and they create creatures that are, just like we have minotaurs and centaurs and those type of things. They exist in the universe because no one owns their DNA, is what they say. And it's like the colors on a artist palette. People can mix and match and have phosphorescent cats that glow green and whatever. And I've seen cats that are blue and purple and very bright colors. I've spent a week one time, and I come back and I say, honey, there's these cats, and they're like really bright colored, and they're absolutely gorgeous. But it's like,
Captain Richard saw this
yeah.
one that was pink that saved his life and sent his ship back.
Yeah, there's a cat species that bipedal with arms, and but then you have your cats that, like my cat that hugs my feet at night. So we have all kinds of variations on the things.
So when you have these experiences, is it a visionary experience? Is it out of body, or are you literally abducted?
I've had all the above. It's hard to tell when you're there if you're in your astral body or your real body, but they periodically give me indications of what's going on. But that we get all bogged down in the details. Everything is as real as everything else, right? So we have meetings where we go there, I guess, in our astral form, like Thoth talks about in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, or Thoth. And anyway, we can travel in our astral body and then assemble something for our convenience. We can make it into like the Colosseum or beautiful wooded environment or a high-tech glossy environment. I was once in a meeting with 100,000 beings, and it was a huge Colosseum that went up as far as the eye could see. And the beings that wanted to speak and be recognized by the whole group would project an avatar down to the arena below, so you could see its physical avatar. But then the people sitting in the seat could see the face talking to you individually. So you had a choice to watch the scene down below or to pay attention to the individual avatar that was actually hovering right in front of your face. And it wasn't a screen, it was just like a projection. It was a whole.
Yeah, you can get that in a Chevrolet.
Right. Now you don't.
Yes, you can. Right out in front, like it's just sitting
like
there.
A hologram. Yeah, so they use a lot of holographic. So you don't know where if you're there or your hologram or your spiritual self or your astral self. That you get bogged down. Or even semantic. It doesn't matter. You're there.
So you just kind of wake up there?
Sometimes I come back and it's like you're thinking that life is solid, right? It's just you thinking
it's not solid,
right? You're there. It's not solid. Yeah, so you're there. If you want to be there, you're there. That's the level that God or the Gauls do travel, or the Q. Q just pops up in the Enterprise. He's there. He doesn't have to get into a ship and drive for 20 millennia. He's just there. We all, each individually and collectively, have that ability. But we've agreed to go unconscious into the matrix, into this holodeck, and believe what we're perceiving as real. So, yes, it's real. It's all real. And we can make it solid real, so we knock on the table, or we could, put our hand through the table.
My mentor likes to call it the dark sea.
Say it again?
My mentor likes to call it the dark sea. All of existence.
Yeah, and so when you get to that level that's what happened with the Anunnaki. They go through the amnesia to a degree, and they have a greater awareness than human beings do. Of course, we're like chickens in a pen. Chickens in a pen think that's all that there is your pen, right? Then you go out to the yard. So we're just in that level. We're in this planet, and we're so limited. We're quarantined here, and we don't get to do much of anything. But some of us,
we are quarantined, aren't we? I've come across that lore before.
Yeah, that's the way they describe it. But some are working in the secret space program. Some are like astral travelers. I've been an astral traveler all my life, and when I met Dr. Lesson, we started doing more like regressions and shamanic work, and I activated my ability to travel like Nagashita, who was describing to his dad, like, hey, we're not limited to flying around in spacecraft. We can just go there.
I'm a big fan of Thoth.
Thoth is
Sorry, you can call him whatever. That's just the way I say it, because when I was a little kid, that's how I said it, and it just kind of stuck with me.
You said, you said how again?
Thoth.
Thoth.
No, Thoth.
Thoth. Thoth. Yeah, okay. So I'm not sure there's no, like, this is how you say it, right?
Well, yeah, because his
Thoth,
Egyptian name is
comes out-
Tehuti. So, I mean, Thoth is his Greek name. If you're going straight to... Go on.
When you list, that you get a Thoth.
Thoth or Filter. My sister married a John Toth, so I'm trying to steer away from his name, Toth. But it's interesting that my sister, years ago, before I even heard about or Toth, married a guy named Toth, and I wondered
That's
how
awesome.
his family got that last name. Are they descendants? But he's no longer with us; he's deceased. So can't ask him. But anyway, and he's also known as Negashita and different names. That's what they did in different cultures.
Kukuklan, he's
Yeah.
Kukuklan, and Quetzalcoatl.
He's got a bunch of names, a whole ton of names.
He is really brilliant.
Mercury, Hermes.
Hermes
Trismegistus.
Yeah, I can't even pronounce that.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you one more thing, just to rewind a little bit. In these meetings, did you see any race called the Yahyel? Does that ring a bell?
You know, when we're in these meetings, we're operating on high telepathy, and you know, a lot of beings say, well, we don't need to have names, right? Humans need individual names and species names. So we're not doing on names, we're just doing on information and communication. We're not slowing down and saying, hi, I'm Janet, I'm an earthling from the planet. You know.
What about Arcturians?
What's that?
What about Arcturians?
I think all of the above were there, but we didn't slow it down because we were in a universal galactic level of communication, and so we were there for exchange of information. One of the things they had me do was report what it was like to be a human female in the 21st century living on the planet Earth. So they did ask me to report, and that's what a lot of the I'm an ambassador. A lot of ambassadors, you know, we've agreed to come, and we're kind of on assignment, and we're scientists and we're explorers and we're historians and we're just investigating. And the best way to investigate a planet is to go down and come in through the birth process and become one. So a lot of us are ambassadors. You know, we're here, we've agreed on a soul level to come here, and so we're here experiencing it. So at night I work all the time. I'm always somewhere. I don't always bring it back. Sometimes they don't want me to bring it back to my Janet self, so they kind of babble it with screen memories, and they overlay information until when I wake up, it's like, oh, I can't remember it. Sometimes it comes back, it's so clear, and it's like a download, and I got to get my recorder out, or at least speak it aloud to Sasha, and we try to decipher all the information that I'm receiving. So I'm always getting information, always interacting. Oh, I went to one meeting with the dragon. I won't go into details, but when I was before the dragon, there were at least 1,000 beings in the. It was an underground base. It was a big open.
Oh, there's a lot of those. Right?
And yeah, so I was like plugged in like the CPU of some kind of intergalactic operating system computer, and everything was coming through me, and so I was the voice that was deciphering. Or actually, it wasn't the voice. I didn't use my voice. I was the mind that was interpreting and sending it back to the individuals that were asking the questions or needing the information. I don't know how I did that, but apparently that's my ability as a soul. But this Janet person that I am in this moment has limited capabilities. But we're all
there's a higher self to you that you just don't have full access to with your conscious everyday mind. Right.
And I couldn't. If I had access to my higher self, I would be in information overload, and I would be dysfunctional on a human level. So because the human mind is so limited, they can only feed it so much at a time, or burns up and overloads. So the galactic beings have to be very careful with communicating with humans, and the humans have been dummied down on purpose so they can experience being human, right? And so if we have the whole information, we're not paying attention to the now as a human. So we need to pay attention to, talking to your husband or petting your cat or cooking a meal or even, eliminating fluids from your body.
Hello, dear listener. Have you ever had a paranormal experience? A spiritual or esoteric experience? Have you ever seen a UFO or something that you could not explain? Have you ever witnessed anomalous activity that defies reality? Have you ever experienced unexplained mysteries of existence? If you have your own cryptic tale and would like to have it shared on the podcast, then call 1-800-757-6049 and leave a message of your experience. If it's what Cryptic Chronicles is all about, then it will be shared on the show. Just make sure you thought about what you will say ahead of time, and give a clear and concise account. Also make sure to leave your name, where you're from, or any information that will assist in making a clear picture to portray to listeners of Cryptic Chronicles. Once again, call 1-800-757-6049. That's 1-800-757-6049. We look forward to hearing from you.
So, what happened with this Federation encounter with the Anunnaki? You said that there was a conflict. Can you explain this first conflict between the Anunnaki and this Federation?
At one point, the Anunnaki were going to leave Earth. When they knew the flood was coming, that the ice sheet was going to, and glaciers the size of Maryland were going to plunk into the South Seas, and great big walls of water would sweep the Earth in every direction. They knew that was going to happen, and so they said, "Well, we got the gold. Let's get out of here." So Anu sent a bunch of freighters, rockets down, and to get the gold and the people and bring them back. Off of one of them comes this fellow named Galzu, a distinguished-looking guy, and he has this seal of Anu on this thing, and it says, "This is my plenipotentiary. He speaks for me," and he talks to Yahweh and Lil and Enki and Lucifer and Lilith, who's Nimma, and says, "Listen, I see you three have aged. You can't leave Earth or you'll die. You're to circle Earth or go to the moon or Mars, but stay around until the flood's over. It'll be like 4 months or so, and then you can come back, but don't go back to Nibiru or you're going to die." And then so Enlil says, "Okay, you got it. If any of you Anunnaki say one word of this to the Earthlings about the flood coming, you're dead. I'm going to kill you personally." And so Galzu gives Enki a computer program which Enki puts into the wall of Noah, Ziasudra, and he says, "Ziasudra, I ain't talking to you. I'm just talking to this wall, and it's got some information. You do what it says, and I'm going to send my son Ninagal to help you assemble and guide this submersible. But don't you just I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking to your wall." And bullshit. But anyway, that's what what it says, and so that's there. He intervenes to make sure that when it's all over and they decide they're going to repopulate the Earth with the sons of Noah, there it is. That's when everybody realizes, oh gosh, we have been manipulated. Well, we got to do it. We have to do the work ourselves. And they only later find out when Anu visits them, oh, we could have that's bullshit. I didn't have any emissary, and we can certainly cure the aging now. We've got the science to do it. He just lied to keep you there. And then that's when Enlil says, you know what? He kept coming to you in a vision and said that blasted Marduk was going to get charge of the earth. Wow, we've been interfered with. He must represent this Federation. And Lilith says, maybe so, but he represents the creator of all. We are meant to help these people, to give them, and Anu says, yeah, give them all the tools of civilization, but mostly give them some spiritual tools and stop interfering with them. But he laughed, but Marduk stayed and kept interfering and so forth.
Yeah, that was some crazy stuff. But who is this Galzu exactly? You say that he's the prophet of the creator of all?
They don't quite know. He's like they've decided he's, in all probability, he's a representative of the Federation of Lyrans who seek a peaceful universe, and is concerned that time not be fiddled with, that we not be invaded by extra galactic forces, and that we somehow make peace with the reptilians.
Yeah, it's like a being that has the awareness of the entire continuum. The highest level beings do not go through this veil of forgetfulness. In fact, most beings have their awareness of who they were before they incarnated into the current incarnation. But this is a high level awareness, probably like right up against source, like a source level being. The first level kind of subparsing from form or all there is, and universal consciousness, the creator of all oneness. So it's in that immediate circle, and then they can come down through the dimensions, and it's like the Christic consciousness, although I'm not sure where that Christic consciousness is, if it's up right against source or if it's even a lower dimension. We haven't quite figured all that out, but it's a very high, the Galzu, and he's like the Q, very high level being, but instead of Q being mischievous and kind of a bad person, these when you're at the highest level, you feel everything, so you couldn't possibly hurt something, because it's like trying to take out your own eyeball, right? I mean, I guess you could take your eyeball out, but you don't hurt anything because you feel them. You feel everything that everybody else feels. You're still connected. So they decided to have an experiment and send beings down into the deepest level of creation, and so we were encapsulated into skin. Skin is thick, and so when we're thick-skinned, we can't quite feel the other person because we have this layer of separation, and molecular and vibratory separation, so we could have this grand experience of self and apparent other. So we think that, I think that Sasha's not me, but really we're all one being having one continuous life in all these different forms. But down here we're in the purpose. It was done on purpose, the illusion that we are separate beings, so we can have the experiment in consciousness that one of the things they wanted to experiment with was can we hurt each other? Can we harm each other? Can we kill each other? What happens when you have the dichotomy of good and light, good and bad, light and dark, or evil? What happens? So what happened is we can nuke each other. So now they're trying to, how can we, now that we're in the deepest, darkest level of creation, how can we feel our oneness while we're incarnated in a skin encapsulated self sense? And so can we bring heaven to earth, so to speak? Can we love our neighbors as ourselves? Can we really feel unique consciousness? And that's one of the reasons why I got involved in Tantra. Because in Tantra, you can awaken your Kundalini and clear your chakras and connect with another person, even though you're in two separate forms, and merge into unity consciousness and feel your oneness. And so that's part of my spiritual practice, my tantric practice.
That's fascinating.
We're in it's more than soulmate. We're in a twin flame type of connection, unity consciousness. So when you're in that type of relationship, you could never cheat on your spouse or lie to them, because everything you do, you consider the other person as if it's yourself, right? So we're in this system, two-person system, that everything we do is in support of each other. I guess we're in a 5-person system because we take our cats considerations, so we have interspecies relationships. Yeah.
So what exactly happened to make Earth quarantined?
Well, the story that I got from Errol the Grey, who was the Grey that they interviewed at Roswell, and she didn't, they did kill her. She just was done with her mission and she left, and they thought they had killed her, but she just at one time got tired of all the questions and she just left. But anyway, she was explaining, there's a whole series called Alien Interviews by Lawrence Spencer, and somebody took the book and made it into a series of, but he left it. He said, I don't care. I just want to get the information out there. It's not about me selling books. And so what they said, the Greys came here millions of years ago, and they discovered that this was kind of like a penal colony. This whole part of the galaxy is a place where everything's, so I guess there was a virtual reality game set up in this part of the universe, and it is part of the Milky Way, it is part of the galaxy, and it's an experiment in consciousness. But the way they perceived it, it was a prison planet, and the people, the beings, the souls that were, criminals, or not even just maybe they spoke up against whatever. These were the rebels. The rebels all got sent here, so they came down in 3D form to explore this part, and they came to the Earth, and they sent their Greys into, what was it, Dogon, and where were they, in China or Tibet or something? Anyway, about
the Dogon tribe is in Africa.
Okay, no, it was the one that was in Tibet. I mix up their name. Anyway, they were in Tibet or China, was right in there somewhere in the mountains, and they got killed about 1,000 years ago or something. And then they got caught in the cycle of life, death, rebirth. So they're part of the human soul system coming in and incarnating. And they didn't know how to rescue them.
They're called the Dropa.
The Dropa, not the Dogon, the Dropa. Okay.
But there is a Dogon tribe in Africa where they were visited by aliens called the Nomos. Right. The aquatics.
So that's different. So these are actually gray alien souls trapped in this human system of reincarnation. They're trying to get them out. So they delivered the Roswell. We could never crash an alien craft. They're telepathic. They know what we're going to do before we even think it. So all this technology is being delivered to us. So we take it, the Trojan horses inside, and we reverse engineer. Why? Because they want us to catch up to help free all the souls from this prison planet system. It's not working out very well.
and be a home for their hybrids.
And anyway, so that's part of why.
And be home for their hybrids?
Home for their hybrids. I don't know.
Yeah,
see, all these species think they're separate, like the Anunnaki, and then they get entangled with humanity. And
that's the Yahyel I was talking about earlier. They're a hybrid.
Who?
The Yahyel. They're apparently, allegedly, they're supposed to have been the aliens that visited us during the Phoenix Lights encounter.
Okay.
Allegedly, those are the Yahyel.
The Phoenix Lights were not extraterrestrial. That was a craft. I mean, it was originally given to us, and we reverse engineered it. But that was humans that have alien technology. And John Tyler II, he's been on my show a couple times. He piloted one of that's the interstellar craft. Actually, the TR-3B is. Or TR3, all those variations. They're interstellar. They can time and space travel. They can go across the solar system in an hour. It's like, or minutes. I don't know the equation. But he said, no, that was one of ours. And in the 70s, they took 2 of them outside the solar system looking for planets that were inhabitable. They had 10 of them. They were exploring, much like in Star Trek. They can just circle around and they can learn a lot about the potential of the planet before they select them. So they went close to these 10. They settled on 2, and so they've been colonizing that for years. That's why I guess a lot of the royals don't care if we destroy Earth, because they've already got their prime real estate picked out on other planets.
I always figured that a lot of UFO sightings were actually man piloting advanced aircraft?
Well, they have a lot of it. They've been interacting with, all these different species for hundreds of years now, and they've had different agreements made. But usually the other species are not giving the humans their top technology. They
Of course
kind of
not.
give them the old models. But we're so smart. That's one of the things that humans are valuable because of our ability to image, to imagine, to take something like we can take the Roswell craft and say, well, that's nice, but let's put, some wings on there and make it blue. They add. Humans are engineers and architects. We can tweak things with our imagination and improve things. So that's why we're very valuable in the secret space program, and we're actually a commodity that's bought. We're still slaves, and we're bought and sold, so to speak, in the intergalactic market. We're good for sex slaves. We've been kind of, what was that? They said that they changed the humans so they can mate with other species, or some species that they can. So they like other species like to have physical sex with humans, so they use humans for sex slaves. So I remember Jabba the Hutt. I guess that was really a depiction of poor Princess Leia.
Yeah, I remember that.
Here you are, Jabba the Hutt.
Gota gota solo.
Yeah.
Well, that's all like really fascinating, and I'm always intrigued by all of this subject. Do you have an overarching like title for this form of looking at things, this view of existence? Like all I know of it as is the starseeds, like the starseed lore.
Well, I don't know. I haven't really put it in a box yet. That's interesting.
It's hard to define.
It's hard to define. It's just I'm a nerd. I'm married to a nerd, and we're super geeks, and you sound like us, and we just research this stuff all. But I'm an experiencer, so sometimes I can, I hear something and I just put that in the bullshit, or that's. I look at people's hearts and souls, and where are you going with this information? Is this kind and loving? Yes, and I tend to embrace it. If it's not, nah, I'm not going to go down that thread. And I'm really concerned with the conspiracy things that have been hijacked into some political propaganda that's going to take us to a certain agenda. It's like, nah, that's not kind of loving. I got involved in this field. I'm 66, so I was 12 years old when Star Trek came, and I volunteered to do the early monster conferences and Star Trek conferences. I got involved at a young age. And I think it's because I was a contactee since the crib, and I was so excited when they finally had an intelligent alien, and it wasn't the blob. And I loved The Day the Earth Stood Still. I saw that in reruns, and literally when I would find something like that, I would jump up and down during the commercials and scream. My mother didn't know what to do with me. Why is this kid jumping up and down? And because it's like I got left on this planet and into the dark abyss, and it's like, yes, they're there. It's like I was getting signals from my home planet. Oh, don't feel abandoned. We're with you. We're with you. Because they, in order for me to stay human, they had to block my memories. I'd have all this wonderful contact, and then I'd wake up in my human life and like, oh man, I can't tell anybody. I can't do anything about it. It was back in the 60s and 50s and 60s. You couldn't talk about this stuff. It wasn't until really, in the 60s, we started to be able to talk about it as if it was science fiction. But my soul knew. No, Gene Roddenberry, he's talking about what's really going on. And I did that with my soul. So when Roswell started happening, when Betty and Barney's Hills story came out in the 70s, and Eric Von Daniken came through in the 60s.
I love him.
Rod Serling would narrate, and it was just my heart would soar and tears would come down my eyes, and it's like, I can't wait. How can we wake up the world? And then I discovered Zecharia Sitchin's 12th planet. And Zechariah wasn't perfect. We hung out with him. He was a little old Jewish Orthodox. And he had his quirk, but he had open heart surgery when one of his last presentations. He's here. I had open heart surgery. Yeah, he says, think about it. They cut me open. They opened my chest. They opened my heart. And he said he prayed to Enki before he went, because he didn't know if he was going to come out of it. And he said, please, if you spare my life, I will write another book for you, whatever it is. And so he went on to write, 2 or 3 more books. He was so dedicated to work. But of course, people skew things through their origin.
Totally. It's called confirmation bias. I started reading him like a decade ago, probably longer. And I really love those books a lot, but I don't take all of it as like dogma. I mean, because especially since he tries to wrap his religious view around it and like fit things in. That alone is just kind of like, gonna make me second guess a lot on you, dude.
It's kind of like John on the island that wrote Revelations. He was trying to explain nuclear holocaust, and he didn't even have the concept. So Zechariah is a product of his times and his product of his programming, and he didn't have concepts to explain what was. I mean, he was translating this stuff, and they're talking about technologies and concepts that are way beyond. I mean, he started writing them in the 70s. We were kind of dark back then. We didn't know.
Yeah, totally.
We still don't much of anything. So I forgive him. I go, okay.
Yeah, me too. I forgive him. It's still fantastic. Like, I'm not saying it's not fantastic. It is. And I love him.
Yeah, it is. And like Eric Von Daniken, who's still with us, he's kind of evolving with the information. But now we're dealing with an agenda. So, I'm talking to all the super soldiers and people that are whistleblowers, and there's an overall agenda, and who is still doing it? Is it Marduk? Is it Nanar? Is it Dracos? Somebody has an agenda for this planet, and it's not very light. It's pretty dark, and so I'm not really privy to that information, but I do get taken to other planets so I can kind of recharge. They're doing a lot of repair work. Being alive on this earth right now with all the pollution and all the stress and COVID, my protectors are working triple overtime to keep me in my body. I never know when I'm going to quote unquote get called home. I don't know. There's a lot of us are checking out, but this planet's in grave danger. Not the planet. I think the planet will be fine, but a lot of these species, we're now in these grave danger. And I take it that, how old are you, dear Tim? You're younger
34.
than we are. 34, right. So I am so happy that you're studying this and waking up. Dr. Lesson's 80 years old. I'm 66. Come on, kids. Come on, make this happen. I'm hoping you guys, we can all get the cures for physical immortality, because the Anunnaki were millions of years in it. They didn't die at 1,000 or 1,500. No, they're still alive. They're still in their forms. So that's our potential, that we can be physically immortal. And so if we can beat this clock, I can be around another.
Do you think that the Anunnaki are still here?
Oh yeah, they're definitely still here. Yeah, I've seen them. I've talked to them. I've had meetings with them. And others have.
What do they do?
Michael Lee Hill was up what was one of those hippie fests in upstate New York a few years back, and he goes to this tent that was it was bigger inside than it was outside. One of those things. They do that with ships too. You walk in and go, wait, this can't be.
This isn't how physics works.
This is how physics. So he was in one of those, and he got introduced to several Anunnaki. One called himself Loki, I think it was Enki, and another said it was Marduk, and so he's had some like 3D at a hippie fest in upstate New York, contact with extraterrestrials. I've met them both astrally and physically when I was on an underground installation. I know other people have. So yeah, Enki's still here. They all came back. A lot of them came back. they can go back. That's what coming and going is like. No big deal for them. They have.
A lot of people think that they don't have good agendas towards us. They look at us as a resource.
It's just as complicated as human. We have our Hitlers, we have our Jesuses, we have those that love humanity and those who just want to get rich and use us for slaves. And so I interact with the light side of the force. I interact with the Yankee. I'm part of the Yankee clan. My soul is part Yankee clan, and of course, all of us genetically are part Yankee clan. And Nima is the mother of humanity.
Well, yeah, Yankee's awesome.
And Yankee's DNA goes through many of us, and he would like to come back and kind of reintroduce his DNA. Like he liked to copulate with humans, so they're able to copulate and procreate. So we are the same species, right? You can't have physical offspring unless you're the same species. A dog can't mate with a cat.
Yeah, that's the Adon humans, right? The humans that were in Eden, that's the children of Enki, aren't they? If I remember correctly.
Well, I'd like to experiment with genetics, but I'm talking about the ability for two, like a dog and a fox can have sex, but they can't create children.
Yeah.
Right? We can have sex with an Anunnaki and have children. And apparently we can have sex with the Bigfoot. And there's stories of people having children via mating with Bigfoot.
With modern genetics, you could create
you
dog
could create
cats.
it in a lab, but I'm talking about just a physical population. And so there's something about physically mating and being in an orgasmic state with somebody, and especially if you're in love, that brings forth a soul that's a higher vibratory frequency and has a greater potential.
So
Because
we're going to
the
have an
Anunnaki-
episode on Bigfoot now that you're talking about Bigfoot. One of these days.
I'm not an expert on Bigfoot. We can interject. We can talk about Bigfoot. But one thing I was going to say, and then I was done. Okay, so they copulated. I don't know. I forgot my thought. Okay, that's all right. It'll come back to me an hour from now when we're off the air. Like, what was I thinking? Bigfoot, Anunnaki, copulating. Oh, Enki and Nima. Enki wanted sons from Nima. He would have said, "Give me a son, give me a son." And she kept breeding, girls. I mean, they could have just done things like we do now. We can have a couple produce nothing but sons or nothing but daughters, but they didn't do any kind of intervention because there was something from the children resolved it from authentic copulation and the energy that's around that, the love or the sexual excitement. It brings in a different essence to the soul that comes into the body than if you were to genetically create things. That's why I think the Greys, their children are weaker and their blood is vibrant, and they probably don't have as much potential than if you were to achieve the same thing through quote-unquote natural breeding practices of using sexual energy.
So my understanding of the Greys is that they can't really breed, and that's why they abduct so many humans and mess with our DNA.
That's my understanding. Although I watched Taken by Steven Spielberg, and I don't know why he had the alien that escaped from the Roswell craft go over and copulate with the. Did you ever see Taken by Spielberg? It's 20 hours. If I didn't watch it, it's brilliant. It was made in 2000, 1999, 2000, and so it was like a. Spielberg does his homework, and he has, I forget the guy's name. There's like this writer. He's basically writing a feature movie a 2-hour feature movie every week. I don't know. Whoever this writer was it was probably a pseudonym. He's probably somebody in the UFO field because he just knew all this stuff, or it might have been an insider. But it's brilliant. So that takes you to the year 2000. And I wish Spielberg would do something more on that, but he's busy with other projects. He may have a gag order not to go any further. We're not sure what's going on with all these people. They're not sitting down to have a cup of tea with me to talk about this stuff.
They're not going to spill the beans anytime soon.
Thank you for joining us. This is another episode of the Aquarian Radio Network, and we are simulcasting with Cryptic Chronicles' Tim Hacker. We do hope you join us again another time. And much love and blessings and aloha. We will see you again soon.
Bye, everybody. It was a blast. Well, that was an interesting and pretty mind-blowing show. Gotta thank Dr. Sasha and Janet for that very fascinating discussion. And don't worry, I'm not even halfway done yet with my series covering Nephilim lore. But what Dr. Sasha said about the Anunnaki was a good sneak peek of a future episode that I'm gonna cover Zecharia Sitchin's Anunnaki lore in full. Though I'm gonna have to summarize it for not only expediency, but also making it, I guess, an easily understandable narrative. I got some messages asking if I was gonna have more episodes covering the Nephilim, so I guess I just clarify here to answer your questions if you were wondering the same thing and you just didn't know how to reach me. Anyway, I found Janet's alien encounters very interesting and honestly really enjoyed both the hosts of the Aquarian Radio immensely. And I hope to have the honor of broadcasting with them many times to come. Aquarian Radio is available through the links that I have in the show notes, or found in pretty much the majority of podcast hubs, as well as Blog Talk Radio. I personally subscribe to them on Spreaker, but you can also find a direct link to the show at aquarianradio.com, their website. So go check them out. Especially if you like alien and starseed stuff or ancient alien stuff with like a dash of metaphysics and spirituality. But before we come to a close, let's look at a couple of the comments real quick and see what y'all got to say about the show. Valeria Rueda says, "Get straight to the point. Funny side comments and throws in his opinion, which I love because sometimes it's a different opinion than mine. That gives me perspective. Sounds very intelligent. Speaks very clear." Thanks. That's actually a really nice compliment. Thank you. And Cast Dis right here says, "Organized and focused. I hate shows where the host thinks he can just randomly chat at us with no structure. This one's a keeper." Hey, thank you. So I'm just gonna keep on quoting like, a couple of these comments every episode from now on or whatever. And thanks for the comments. Please give me more feedback and criticism too, so that I can just make the show better and better. But before you go, listener, I want to, of course, thank my illustrious patrons: Leanna Watson, Stephanie Wilkie, Angie Allen, Kenny, Ashley, Megan Croswell, Paul, and Linda Gonzalez. And if you'd like to become one of the greatest badasses who ever lived by becoming a patron, simply go to crypticchronicles.com and click on the Chronicler's Vault. At just $1 a month, you get all kinds of good stuff. But blah, 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 blah. Let's get out of here, yeah? As always, thanks for listening to Cryptic Chronicles. I'm your host, Tim Hacker, and as the author of the Tao Te Ching once said, "A good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent on arriving.